Or good evening, everyone. Welcome to Quinton Live. We are so thrilled that you're joining us today. Now, if you're new to our community, we are the team at Water and Wellness. We are so passionate about hydration, minerals, any science-backed solutions to health. My name is Dr. Angela. I've been in the functional medicine space for about 17 years. I am joined today by Mike Long and Robert Slovak. Combined, these two have over 80 years in the water science and purification arena. And also, Robert just happens to be the person that brought Quinton to the United States 20 years ago, or over 20 years ago now. And Mike also played a significant role in the expansion of Quinton to Asia. So lately, we've been getting so many questions about electrolytes, trace minerals. You know, it's summer and it's electrolyte season. So rather than just answering these questions that come in one by one, we thought we'd get the community together and we would answer your questions. So it's all about you, your curiosity, your questions. And let's get started. Let's dive into the deep zone about Quinton and kick things off with one of the most popular questions that comes in, which is what is the difference between isotonic and Quinton hypertonic? What are they? What are the differences? And who'd like to start us off?
Well, let's let Robert go first.
This is an easy one for you, Robert.
Well, let's show you both in case there are people who just are really finding out about this recently. These are two versions of Quinton. These are the versions that are in glass ampules. And they've been this way, understanding, you'll hear more about this, since 1897. Maybe they didn't look this beautiful, but in 1897, they had ampules of Quinton hypertonic and Quinton isotonic, and I'll explain that in a second. And they were both sterile and apyrogenic in those days, as they are now, and that made them an injectable substance, because the interest in Quinton in the late 1800s was all about healing and health. And in the early 1900s, the world was kind of hit with multiple pandemics that included probably the worst pandemics in history: cholera, tuberculosis, syphilis, malnutrition, infertility, et cetera, et cetera. So these are the hypertonic and the isotonic. Now, hypertonic is derived and harvested from the ocean, and it's marked or identified as not being diluted. It is processed to pharmaceutical standards, but it is not diluted. It is the same concentration as seawater. Now, there was a good reason for this, and you'll learn this eventually. René Quinton realized that humans' blood plasma is isotonic. So we wanted something that was very compatible with animal plasma, and that is an isotonic concentration of 9,000 parts per million, or 0.9% concentration of the minerals and trace elements in Quinton. And the concentrated seawater is 3.3%, which is the concentration of seawater of the periodic table of minerals and trace elements. So I'm going to start this off for my benefit. I'm going to take an isotonic because with all the helter and skelter that you do to prepare for a seminar like this, you kind of get anxiety. So one of the great things, my first thing I'm going to teach you, is that isotonic has been proven time and time again, primarily through heart rate variability studies, which is one of the newest ways of evaluating health, to shift somebody from sympathetic fight or flight to parasympathetic, which is calming and comforting. So this is capable of doing this within the space of about 10 minutes. So I'm going to take one ceremoniously and also to calm my own anxiety.
While you do that, I'm also just going to mention that all the information that we discuss here, it's not intended to diagnose, treat, or prevent any disease. Just to get that out, and you always want to check with your practitioner about things that you're taking. Thank you, FDA. Isotonic, Robert. So the question is, what do you start with? And we always suggest isotonic first.
Yes, isotonic. Isotonic has an identity with the body that's very unique. It's the same as your blood plasma, and for the last 127 years, it has been used to even replace blood plasma. Okay. It has been available in Europe, in North Africa, during all the pandemics as an IV solution. And in fact, even though we aren't able to market this here in the United States, there is an IV bottle of isotonic seawater from Quinton Laboratories, and this is used to do an IV. So you can see there's something really special about something that's derived from the sea that's capable of being an IV solution for healing. The Quinton Isotonic is something that is concentrated about 3.5 times more than the isotonic, and it's the natural seawater, so it contains the abundance of the periodic table, not only of minerals and trace elements, but many other nutrients we don't have time to get into. It has RNA in it. It has, vitamins and other organic compounds that are related to health. So we start with isotonic, probably, I would guess, for at least a month, see how how you're doing. And I would really start out with 2 per day and try that. And then if you feel, wow, this is special, can I feel even better? Then try it for another month and perhaps even a 3rd month if you have health problems and health conditions that you want to see how they respond.
If I can interject, for those of you who are new, I live in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. That's where I am now. The last 3 weeks, the temperature has been about 95, humidity has been about 80. So the feels like is anywhere from 105 to 110. And what we find here in Asia is that you sweat profusely. You'll sweat from the time you walk out of the shower till the time you get down to your car. So, as Robert and Dr. Angela said, it's important to start with isotonic. That gives you a feel for how your body tunes in and how quickly. A lot of people here, because of the extreme weather conditions, will use isotonic in the morning, and then midday they'll use hypertonic because of all of the volume of liquid they've lost through perspiration. Now, of course, if you are in an office, you don't have to worry so much, but I would simply say this: beginning with isotonic is the best way to start. And if you are doing anything of an extreme nature, whether it's thinking, playing tennis, as I love to do, or even taking little short walks around the neighborhood, hypertonic is a fantastic electrolytic replacement. And in fact, it's the best electrolytic replacement, in my opinion. So just my interjection.
That brings me to the next question is
Okay,
whether Quinton.
I do want to mention that even though we showed you the glass ampule, Quinton is available, both hypertonic and isotonic, in a sachet. You can make it easier for exercising, traveling, and so on.
Perfect. Now, people ask, is Quinton more for trace minerals, or does it provide enough of the big minerals like magnesium, potassium, and zinc?
It does 78 minerals and trace elements. And while for the primary minerals like calcium, magnesium, even though it's quite rich in those, it does not provide enough of the foundational minerals that build our body's structure, like calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, potassium, etc., to be used and for exclusively for survival. But certainly it is the purpose of ketone is to regulate the concentrations of the periodic table within your body fluids. That's its entire purpose. And if you give it what the amounts that ketone has, your body will rearrange those proportions as they were during evolution. And you inherited this design through evolution about 2.6 billion years. All animal species were actually evolving in the ocean. And we have so much information on that we won't be able to cover today. So yes, it contains everything within 1 to 3 ampules per day that you need for virtually every physiological demand of your body.
Let me once again interject because that's a great explanation, Robert. But I think it's worth re-emphasizing that for the foundational minerals, you need to eat a well-balanced diet. Because, for example, you're not going to get enough calcium just by taking hypertonic or isotonic. You won't get enough phosphorus. So it's important that you eat a good balanced diet. And please remember that today's nutritional content of our foods is not anywhere near what it was even 50 years ago due to soil depletion. So using Quinton as a supplement, making sure that you have the right balance, the right mix of these elements and trace minerals, you must eat good food. And I don't think Dr. Angela, Robert, or I can emphasize this enough. Today's diet in general is extremely poor, and you almost have to make sure that you're taking the right amount of nutrition in terms of the foundational elements that we need.
Precisely.
Okay?
And it's quite easy to get those 9 primary minerals, as we call them, the calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, potassium, etc., from your food. It's the trace elements that are truly absent in modern food that are suffering from irregular farming methods and fertilizers and pesticides. And we are going to have to speed this up because we have so much more information.
Yeah.
And we have
Great. Now, let's get into the personalization. We got a few amazing questions from people at different life stages. So, which type of Quinton is better for teenagers or young adults with gut issues, acne, or eczema?
Certainly, generally speaking, any health condition will respond faster if you start and utilize for a period of time to evaluate its effect on the body, isotonic. Isotonic is the more magical of and the more magical of the ketone products, and hypertonic is the more fortified. And usually, when you have a health condition, you need the magic that is that isotonic is capable of.
Mm-hmm.
I
And
just real
someone,
quick, sorry, Angela.
yeah,
Here in Asia, over a period of 15 years or so, we've sold literally hundreds of thousands of boxes of both isotonic and hypertonic. And while we don't want to go down the rabbit hole, I personally have seen people, young people with very serious skin issues who have started on a regimen of isotonic, and I've got photographs. Someday, if we have time, we can show them of incredible results after a relatively short period of time. So to reemphasize what Robert said, isotonic is the way to start. There may be a healing crisis initially. Don't be alarmed. There's nothing in isotonic or hypertonic that can create conditions that you don't want to have. So
Mm, right.
isotonic is the way to start.
And
And
some people never change from isotonic to hypertonic. You
pardon?
don't have to. Usually people will progress isotonic for 2 or 3 months and then progress to hypertonic daily for maintenance. However, there are a lot of people that don't. They just stay because they feel so good on isotonic. I myself, I do isotonic because I'm in that perimenopausal stage and I need the help with the calming and really helping my autonomic nervous system adapt. And if you're someone who deals with sleep concerns, and isotonic before bed is fantastic. So it depends on the person. This is why we always say check with your practitioner. A lot of practitioners might not be familiar with ketone. That's where people run into issues. But you don't have to switch. I put hypertonic in my RO water to remineralize, but isotonic I take on an empty stomach. And this is important to mention too, is that it is best on an empty stomach isotonic. Hypertonic can be taken around mealtime.
Very good.
Okay.
Anything to add, guys?
I'd like to just show everybody what a view of this is a picture of the entire periodic table, and that periodic table exists in the sea. That is the magic, and that is why life evolved in the sea, because it had this benefit of everything that, well, we can say God created. Now, understand that even though we show the whole periodic table, there are 11 gases that are not in, we don't talk about them being in seawater. So that's why we say there's 78 instead of 94 of the elements in the periodic table. If we consider food, this is a representative of the periodic table that's really available in most modern food. You can see how many elements are missing.
Robert, the next question is how much ketone is needed daily to support bone health in menopausal women?
Very good. So it is very important that if you suspect that you are having bone issues, some version of osteoporosis, which can take a number of forms. There can be, anything from a bone loss to a bone softening, etc. And this should be evaluated by an expert. There are bone clinics. One is such is OsteoStrong, which they evaluate with special devices the density of your bone, the number of the strength of the bone, etc. So when you have virtually any form of osteoporosis, one of the most effective things is isotonic. You cannot beat isotonic. I have proven this myself, even in my early 70s, when I was in Spain, and I gave a talk at an OsteoStrong clinic, actually a bone clinic. And the guy, the man who ran the clinic said, "Hey, we'd like to, we so enjoyed your presentation. We'd like to ask you, we'd like to invite you to have a bone test." And so I said, "Oh, wow, certainly." And he said, "We normally charge $350 for that." I said, "Well, that's great. So it's more than I need, but I'd love to see what it is." I submitted myself to this machine that uses some kind of radioactive thing that has a sensor and a detector, and it measures the bone density and so on. And he was looking at my results coming out to the nurse that was looking at the monitor, and he looked at it, and he came back and he looked at it again. He goes, something's not working right. And so he said, "Would you try your other foot? They do this on your ankle." And I did it to my other foot, and he got the same result. And he goes, "It's not possible you have this bone density. I mean, you have the bone density of a 18-year-old athlete." And I'm going, "Oh, I'm not surprised." I was kind of leading him on. He goes, "You're not surprised? Why?" I said, "Because I drink seawater." And that started a whole relationship with clinics that treat bone density issues. It is magical. It has been used for 100 years for osteoporosis, and it will continue to be used for another 100 years at least.
Okay, the next question is, what if I'm an athlete and I have a demanding schedule?
Oh, now you have to consider the use of certainly of hypertonic, because you are going to be using up all your body functions are going to be using and needing the minerals and trace elements of the periodic table to conduct and support your exercise and activity level, including the hydration needs. So you want to go all out. You want to use certainly hypertonic before and after your, say, an event. And you also want to add it to your drinking water for the purpose of hydration. Now, if you're adding ketone to drinking water, you always add it in the form of undiluted seawater, which is the hypertonic. And we've had stories abound of athletes who've had remarkable recoveries and success in high performance sports. And we have many.
Let me jump in real quick. I'll keep it short. Without naming names, there's somebody called the King of Clay. He's the most famous Spanish tennis player in history, recently retired. He uses, and I should say used, I don't know presently, but he used Quinton Hypertonic during his matches because this gentleman sweated profusely. And again, as one of the #1 tennis players in history, it shows you the efficacy of using Quinton Marine Plasma in the hypertonic form for those who are athletes or people living in Southeast Asia who are subjected to brutal heat all of the time.
So
and it's important. Go
again,
ahead, Robert.
Quinton has been so recognized in the professional sports industry. It actually makes a special hypertonic only because in a sachet that they can travel with and put in their backpacks, that is twice the volume of an ampule. This is 20 milliliters instead of 10. So you have enough for like one of these before an event and one perhaps after would support a professional athlete in activity. And this is called totem sport hypertonic.
Oh, perfect. There's also the isotonic version, which is 25 milliliters. That is restorative for athletes before bed. So that's just a separate thing. Now let's transition into family focused mineral support. Throughout the years, we've had a lot of heartfelt questions from moms. We've had people send us pictures of their Quinton babies. So what is the best dosage of Quinton for pregnant women by trimester? And what about infants and young children?
Well, we have René Quinton, and let me show you quickly the biography of René Quinton. Unfortunately, this is in French, but this impressive biography reveals how involved René Quinton was with babies, because it was extremely challenging to have babies during the pandemics during the lifetime of René Quinton. So I'm going to just show you, this is a couple of pages from it that show the babies that he recovered that perhaps likely wouldn't have survived. And cholera and tuberculosis will really damage the fetus. So I have a couple things to say. He is legendary. There are books written on how to have babies, which became so profound that they actually use the term Quinton babies. You can never go wrong having a Quinton baby. You will be delighted. And we have protocols, too much to go over here for various conditions dealing with pregnancy and conception. So it covers from conception, fertility, throughout the prenatal period, breastfeeding. There are protocols for each of those. I wish we had time to go over it, even in a special session we'd like to do. And we have an introduction that we're going to provide for you as part of this. We have your email, and it's a very short, concise article, not all the protocols, called Extraordinary Childbearing. And we'll give you this article so you can get an idea of the role that Quinton, both isotonic and hypertonic, serve in procreation.
And just a reminder to discuss this with your practitioner. But can you speak a little bit more to the ways in which Quinton does?
The amniotic fluid, okay? And the amniotic fluid in which the fetus is developing, the fluid in which the baby is floating is truly, as a result of human design, is supposed to be identical to the primordial ocean. That's how the whole plan is structured. It's supposed to be the same as what we evolved in. So it makes sense that you have to get the properties and contents of seawater into the body to make them all available to the fetus. And that's how the plan works. So Quinton is a logical addition. And remember, the pregnancy thing is very, very thorough. And the rules are very thorough. Sometimes you take hypertonic in certain trimesters, sometimes you take isotonic, and you continue that through breastfeeding. Imagine the benefit you're giving your infant when breastfeeding with the entire periodic table of the elements. It's unsurpassed.
And you can
Just a quick, sorry, Angela, just a quick comment here from Asia. As most people realize, especially in parts of Asia, having children is a priority. It's a huge thing. And our personal experience with women who had very difficult times conceiving go on the Quinton baby protocol, both pre-pregnancy, during pregnancy, and post-pregnancy. Just the personal testimonials are amazing. And we need to thank Robert, Renee Canton, and a lot of other people for helping this to happen, especially here in Southeast Asia.
I think in today's fertility crisis, it's very important for women to understand that when they do have children, they are giving so much of their mineral stores to that fetus development. And it's so imperative to replenish that at that specific time, and really ideally prepare prior to. If you're planning on starting a family, both parents should be on Quinton. It's very important.
Yes. Yeah. And it's not uncommon. The women who've had Quinton babies with our guidance have commonly told us, I really can tell the difference between my baby who didn't have Quinton available to him and my baby who has had Quinton through my pregnancy and breastfeeding. So, and this has gone on consistently. And there are volumes written on this, mostly in French, but there are volumes written on this for the last 127 years. So it's pretty much a proven thing.
Well, let's just shift gears into some more sciencey and exciting questions. How does Quinton support mitochondrial health?
Quinton supports mitochondrial health because, like the other organelles in the body, all need its own unique set of elements from the periodic table. And the mitochondria, of course, uses water as its primary fuel, but the cellular health is pretty much defined by being in an environment of fluid in your body, and all cells are floating in a fluid called the extracellular fluid or extracellular matrix. And that matrix was inherited from evolution of the animal species in the ocean. So that's what the cell needs, and that's what every organelle, the little devices within each cell that perform a function. So the mitochondria are an organelle, and they, like all the other organelles, including the DNA in the nucleus, all those components, organelles, as we call them, need the elements of the periodic table. I don't know that there are specific, I don't know offhand what are the specific elements that are needed by the mitochondria, but I can assure you every aspect of human biology or animal biology and physiology will demonstrate that it needs to be able to select from the 78 minerals and trace elements of the periodic table to function at full capacity.
Angela, if I may, real quick, speaking specifically about mitochondria, a lot of people think of it as the engine, if you will, that creates the energy that performs all of the marvelous functions in the body. And we'll do a deep dive on this at another session. One of the keys to mitochondrial function, high functioning, is not only the 78 minerals and trace elements, is something called molecular hydrogen. We won't go there today, but it is a fascinating dive, and you will learn things that you will probably be astounded by. So, mitochondria, the engine of the cell, the thing that powers us, if you will, the little nuclear engine, if I can use that term, needs the Quinton Marine Plasma, and it also benefits greatly from molecular hydrogen. So we'll talk about that on another session.
Another important point, we talk about Quinton like as harvested in the sea, but we really leave out a very, very critical aspect of that process. It's not just seawater. Quinton is taken from a very special place in a very special area of the Atlantic Ocean, and this is called the Sea of Biscay. And what makes it unique is that it is a very rich, it has a very rich concentration of phyto and zooplankton, the plant and animal versions of plankton, and this is called a plankton bloom. And this Quinton is only harvested from a plankton bloom. It is these organisms that are very symbiotic, that work together in a process called biocenosis, and that they perform the magical, almost undeterminable influence on the minerals and trace elements. It's not just water and the periodic table. Those phytoplankton and zooplankton perform a symbiotic process to change the form, perhaps the energetic form of those elements to the point that they can support evolution of a species.
Good point. And I'd also like to mention that magnesium, which is such a critical mineral and component of hypertonic, is involved in over 300 different enzymatic processes and very important in mitochondrial function. And
Yes.
these minerals, these trace elements, are like spark plugs for our engine, catalyzing these enzymatic and physiological processes. So if you don't have them, it's, you're really at a loss for, and that's why hypertonic is so can be so great for energy and rejuvenation, because it does have that higher concentration of the minerals, especially magnesium. So,
And it's the most bioavailable magnesium known. That's what characterizes these elements. The phytoplankton and zooplankton make the elements ultra bioavailable.
absolutely, absolutely. And Robert, the next question is Quinton supporting oral health. What is the mechanism behind that?
What health? Excuse me?
Oral health? Oral?
Uh, well, I mean, Quinton has a long history also of oral health. You mean dental oral health, correct?
Right.
Okay. So it is mainly something reserved for dental practitioners, where the gums, for instance, are literally revived by subcutaneous injection in the gums. And of course, the minerals and trace elements are very essential for the bone aspect of teeth. It goes without saying. But it is used, and that's one of the reasons when you take hypertonic, especially, that if you kind of leave it in the mouth, it's very invigorating and beneficial to the gums. But I would say that the real dental miracle is performed by professionals who properly inject Quinton in gums.
Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. And also remember that it does have an impact on the microbiome in the body, which also includes the bacterial balance within the mouth. So
Oh,
anytime
yeah,
you're taking,
surely.
yeah, anytime you're taking it, try to swish it around in the mouth 30 to 60 seconds before swallowing. It will be fantastic.
Yeah, Quinton is you most of you have probably heard the term prebiotic. A prebiotic is something that supports the biome, the microbiome of the body, wherever it may be, in the gut or in your mouth. It has its own unique microbiome. And the prebiotic of seawater in this case is magical too, as a probiotic to the microbiome.
Perfect. All right, let's talk a little bit about safety and purity. This came from someone, of course, people who are incredibly informed. If Quinton contains all of the trace elements of seawater, should I be concerned about mercury or other heavy metals?
Well, I mean, perhaps we would have to, because a few of the minerals, especially mercury, and especially lead, are really below detection level. Okay, even though we know chemically that mercury atoms can be found in everything. Okay. But whatever, every food, every living thing, you can find the mercury because the atoms exist. But in practical analytic evaluation, it is below what is called the quantification or detection level. So it is far safer than almost anything that you would consume, in terms of the absence of mercury and other heavy metals like lead in the body. And anyone that's concerned about heavy metals, we highly recommend doing a metals test with a responsible laboratory that's known for measuring heavy metals. Quicksilver Scientific is one such lab that does a very comprehensive heavy metals evaluation of your body fluids.
Right. A lot of people can be concerned about fluoride and aluminum and mercury. It's important to understand that these minerals are part of the Earth's crust. So they're going to be present in the plants that are grown in it. And if you look at something like aluminum, for example, there's 0.5 micrograms per liter. Now, if you look at vegetable juices, you're looking at 3 milligrams to 181 milligrams per liter. That's 6,000 to 360,000 times more in a vegetable juice compared to the seawater. So you have to keep things in perspective. And in this toxic soup that we're living in, it is very important for everyone to do some type of cleansing proactively, especially for heavy metals.
Yes.
If I may, just to touch on what you just said and what Robert mentioned a moment ago, here in Southeast Asia, traditionally people have relied on fish as a very staple source of protein. And the higher up the food chain you go with fish, the more concentrated the mercury becomes. So, especially here in Asia, we recommend that people do some sort of a heavy metal detox. And as Robert mentioned, Quicksilver Scientific has a fantastic analytical capability and also some incredible detoxes. So, the mercury in Quinton Marine Plasma is absolutely not a concern whatsoever. It is, if you're worried about the mercury, it is the fish. If you're eating a lot of fish on a regular basis, it would pay to have it tested. And even if you don't test, do some sort of a detox. It will help for sure.
Dr.
Okay.
Angela, wasn't there a question that included fluoride as well? And that's so important to straighten the fluoride
Yes.
misunderstanding
Yes.
out. So someone asked, I'm not sure, I really can't locate the question, but they were asking about, fluoride is, we speak about,
Why is there fluoride in Quinton?
yeah. So fluoride is, do not ignore the fact that the body has a requirement for fluoride in our design. So it is, when you hear stories about fluoride being dangerous in tap water and so on, yes, but it's not the fluoride that's normally in nature. The fluoride that is dangerous is a very different kind. Hydrofluorosilicic acid is the form, and it's an industrial form of fluoride that's used to fluoridate municipal water supplies. This is toxic fluoride, but calcium fluoride is a form that is common in nature. And this fluoride is actually has a recommended adequate, so-called adequate intake level of about 3 to 4 milligrams per day. And that's what you need to keep so fluoride enters the calcium magnesium bone structure and it makes it the bone strong. This is part of our design. So you need fluoride. And Quinton contains that fluoride in very small amounts, only 1.2 milligrams per liter of fluoride. So you can't even get all of your fluoride from that you need from Quinton. You have to, your food does contain natural fluoride, etc., and other beverages can contain fluoride. But it's the fluoride that is used to fluoridate both your teeth and your toothpaste and so on that isn't a good form of fluoride and can exhibit toxicity.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we've got an incoming question from the chat. I see on the Water and Wellness website that Quinton is being used by inhalation or nasal spray. Can Quinton Isotonic be used as eye drops? Once I used it and my vision was blurry. Would you like to speak to that?
I'm not sure about the blurry, but I don't know how you used it, but there is actually a product that will be coming out, and I use Quinton Isotonic daily as a an eye drop, and we will soon see actually a bottle of ocular Quinton. And this will be sprayed. You can spray this directly in the eye gently. And it's very nourishing to the eye. Almost everyone that I have, virtually everyone I have introduced Quinton for as an eye wash or eye spray has told me this is better than any eye drops from any of the big eye drop companies, eye fluid companies that they have ever had. So it should not.
Robert, that ocular spray, is that coming to the States soon?
Yes,
Beautiful.
yes, it just is going through FDA approval now.
Fantastic.
Because
A quick injection, if I may. This is personal anecdote. I was on a business trip through rural India. My colleague woke up one morning and his eyes were literally crusted shut. Don't know exactly what created the problem. We were literally hundreds of miles away from the nearest reputable clinic, hospital. And I said, look, let's try this. So I put 2 drops of Quinton in each eye, and I
Mhm.
did that throughout the day. And the next morning, he was totally fine. And believe me, he became a regular marine plasma user from that day forward. So, not sure what your caller or your questioner had, but I've always seen really good results, personal results, by using the Quinton, and this is why the ocular spray is soon to be released.
and I recommend that you take it by putting an ampule of isotonic in a small little cup, whatever you have, and then using an eyedropper in that cup to uh, dispense it into your eye by the drop.
Okay.
Perfect. All right, one more question. Magnesium can be in many forms, citrate, glycinate, etc. What magnesium forms are in Quinton?
Well, it's because all of the elements, with the exception of a few, are in the form of an electrolyte. In other words, they carry a charge. That's what allows them to be dissolved in the water. So that magnesium is available to join with many things. So you're just maybe confusing a magnesium compound which has to be broken down by the body. And both parts can be used, like magnesium glycinate. You have 2 parts, magnesium and glycinate, electrolytes. But in seawater, it is available. And that's what makes it so, one of the things that makes it so bioavailable is that it isn't in an ionic form. And it may have a preference for forming, and the preference is not its join to it, because it is in solution as an ion, but it may want to be near things that have an equal and opposite charge, like a carbonate or magnesium carbonate, magnesium, various other compounds in the body. So it's free for your body to do as it needs, rather than forcing it to be dissolved in the body and then used that way.
And Robert, this goes back to that miracle of biosinosis or the plankton bloom, if you will. All of the minerals and trace elements in Quinton are bioavailable, highly bioavailable. So to think of them as individual components, as most people do, is probably a little bit of a misnomer. It is in the solution that life evolved in, and therefore highly, highly bioavailable.
Yes, thank you.
And just a quick note, because of the strong ionic activity of hypertonic, it could potentially react with a low quality stainless steel. So if you're adding hypertonic to water, just be very cognizant. I would use glass, or you could use a medical grade, or make sure that that is a medical grade stainless steel that you are using for your bottle.
Yes.
316 stainless as opposed to 304 is my preference because it's a much higher grade.
We do have to be careful about stainless steel bottles because many of the bottles are made in China, and metals, they use scrap metals and so on and so on, rather than pure steels, stainless steel included, to make bottles. So there are some bottles on the market that have special treatment on the surface of the stainless steel, because stainless steel, when it's formed, it can have heavy metals in it. So you have to be a little careful about that. So choose either a glass bottle or the proper, a safe plastic bottle, in preference to perhaps one of the common inexpensive stainless steel bottles.
Yes. Beautiful. Another question coming in, daily isotonic nasal spray, is that okay? Yes. In fact, I have mine right here. The daily.
So these are nasal sprays, and we actually have done a entire podcast just on nasal sprays and how they can be used. We can't, of course, go over it now. And so that is something we may plan to do again about the nasal sprays. There's both an isotonic nasal spray and a hypertonic nasal spray. I use them all the time, and they are just, again, they enrich the terrain of your nasal passages, and you can use them even for basic sinusitis and other nasal terrain issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Whenever I have congestion, I'm coming down with something, I'm using that hypertonic, the Action Plus, just for daily maintenance. That isotonic, that daily is fantastic. I use it topically as well. It's great for kind of just a mister for females. There's so many different ways that you
males
can,
too.
Males too. But there's so many different ways. I also nebulize with hypertonic. There's so much that the FDA allows in the US, but elsewhere in the world, the IV, the sub-Q, the colonic irrigation, there's so many ways to support the body's health with Quinton.
Yes. And in a future presentation webinar, we are going to give you a deep down the rabbit hole presentation of something that's called the terrain is everything. Because when it comes down to the lowest common denominator, it is all about Quinton, isotonic and hypertonic, to nourish your terrain. And we're going to tell you what that's all about and what it means. And the terrain almost gave us a new medicine, and it was hijacked in the late 1800s. We're going to tell you that amazing story that is probably one of the most incredible and useful things you've ever learned in a health presentation.
Let's see if we have any other questions. Okay, Ariel, if you want to email me about the pregnancy, we can send you the resources. So go ahead and email support@waterandwellness.com. Any additional questions regarding pregnancy, lactation, and we'll get back to you on that.
Do we have everyone's email who wants to receive the extraordinary childbearing?
The easiest way is just reach out to us, email support@waterandwellness.com, and we will get it to you.
Yes, we have a
Um,
list of documents, a little package of documents that you will truly benefit from, and they'll be very exciting when you read all about the lower layer of Quinton Marine Plasma.
Absolutely. And just a couple other things before we finish here.
Can I jump in
Connie?
real quick,
Sure,
Angela?
sure.
Um, in general, I would like to just make this statement, and you can feel free, the audience, to agree or disagree. But I think we're all familiar with the immune system. And our immune systems are designed to protect us from what we call disease. And what I have found over the years of using Quinton is that Quinton puts your body into balance. And if your body is in balance, the immune system can do what it is designed to do. So whether it's orally, whether it is topically, whether it is as a mist or a spray or the QMP ampules or the sachets, Quinton is a marvelous body balancer. We won't go further. I will just say this. We have and personally have experienced so many things that people often describe as miraculous, but in fact, the human body is miraculous. If we treat it well, if we nourish it well, if we give it what it needs, the human body is a miracle. So I can only say that you can make dramatic improvements generally with your health if you'll start using Quinton Marine Plasma.
Mm, good. Love it, Mike. Absolutely. And a couple of other things questions that come in repeatedly. Yes, you can take Quinton even if you have a shellfish allergy. Also, people who have thyroid conditions, iodine. There's such a low amount of iodine. There's more in an apple than there is in Quinton, and that is because the marine plants absorb that iodine. So no problems there.
And
The only,
Angela,
yes.
and that's one people ask the benefit, is Quinton like sea moss? They brought this very wonderful supplement from the sea called sea moss, but it's very, as far as its balance of minerals and trace elements and quantities and proportions are not nearly in the category and efficacy of Quinton, and yet it is excellent for iodine, and because it retains the iodine, excellent for iron as a supplement. And Quinton is relatively low in iodine, which we favor because I'm not iodine, I meant iron, which we favor because iron can be good or bad. So it's good as an iron supplement, and also it's rich in folate, which is a wonderful nutrient, but not again in the category even remotely with the diversity of Quinton's constituents.
Mm-hmm. Wow. What an incredible session, guys. All the questions that we received, they're so deeply personal and rooted in self-care. And we so appreciate all the questions. Keep them coming. It's just a reminder that when it comes to our health, one of the most important things you can do is ask questions, because that gives you that empowering sense of autonomy. So if you're inspired to start your Quinton journey, just join us over at waterandwellness.com. We have the full array. We've got the sprays, the athletic version, totem, everything you can find at waterandwellness.com. And until next time, thank you for diving deep into the deep zone about Quinton with us. Stay hydrated, stay curious, and most of all, stay mineralized.
Thank
Good
you.
night, everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Angela.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
audience.